The SPB121 is one of Seiko's best-selling watches despite its quirks of its cyclops, its compass bezel, dual crowns, cathedral hands, and gilt markings on a green dial. It's a weird watch. Nevertheless, it's a phenomenal choice for an everyday wear with some character in the process, and I've championed it along with others as being a leader in its class. But what if you wanted the upside of the Alpinist with its combo of phenomenal specs for the price? You just wanted to turn down the scale of the unorthodox. Bring in the SPB117, a blacked out take on the Alpinist that I have neglected for far too long. And guys, before we get further into this video, I actually have some pretty tragic news, and I did want to mention this just because it would go a really long way for supporting somebody within the community that really needs us at this time. So Vortic Watch Company, they're a brand you might be familiar with. They're in Colorado. Their whole premise is taking and reviving vintage pocket watches and adapting them to wristwatches. They have a whole shop in Colorado, really cool brand if you've not taken a look at them. Well, their founder, RT, he has unfortunately had a stroke. He's only 34 years old. He has a wife, he has 2 young boys, and he was an entrepreneur in the space, very involved in the microbrand community. And this is a huge setback for the business, but of course his life. He is now just working back just to try to walk again, gain function again. It's gonna be 12 long months of just rehabilitation just to get even a thought about working once again. And then in addition to that, they're saying that at least the doctors, 2 to 3 years before he can really get back into the swing of things like he was, even at a fraction of where he was operating at. He was on a business trip in Detroit and had no other health conditions that he knew about and had this stroke. So very sad story. There's a GoFundMe going on right now. The family's just trying to continue to move forward in this really trying time. I'm gonna link to that down below. I've already committed $10,000 to this cause. If you can even donate $5 to $10, I know that would mean a lot to them as well as for keeping this brand moving. Vortic is an interesting story. They've always been committed to trying to improve American watchmaking, and I'd hate to see this become a casualty to a really unfortunate situation of a health scare like this. I know this is a very different subject than what you were probably anticipating when you clicked on this video, but I heard this news. I wanted to get in front of camera, let more people know about this really challenging time for RT and his family. And again, we're gonna go back to the standard review as normal, but it just didn't feel right to not mention this in some way. Hoping for the best for RT. If you could just take a moment and take a look at the GoFundMe page. If you have the means to do it and support them, I know it would mean a lot. Just wanted to take a moment to call attention to this issue. So in order to properly appreciate the Alpinist family, you need to understand its modern origins with the 2006 release of the JDM SARB 017. This was one of the early fan favorites as the internet watch community was growing, and even I owned one back in the day. The bold design style worked somehow, and the SARB 017 had a nice run until it was discontinued, giving way to the Prospex SPB121 in 2020 with the updated 6R35 caliber. Now, just prior to the launch of the 121, collectors of Seiko were pretty upset about a few moves the brand made. They just lost the adored Seiko SKX in select SARB models and were looking for some refreshes to fill the void. The SKX has yet to get its proper reinvention for a new generation of collectors. However, the wait wasn't as long for the Alpinist. With the release of the SPB121, collectors more or less got precisely what they were looking for: a domestically available green dial looker with the quirks it made famous, all while getting a movement upgrade to go along with it. This created a tunnel vision effect with roses sitting at the feet of Seiko's latest creation. What is often overlooked is that the SPB121 wasn't the only Alpinist release around that time. It simply sucked the air out of the room, taking the attention from all others. Alongside the 121 was the release of the white dial Alpinist and the black dial SPB117. The white dial Alpinist has since been discontinued, although the black dial SPB117 still continues on, being accompanied with a factory bracelet. The strange reality is, I don't think most Seiko collectors know this watch exists, and even I have overlooked it for quite some time, thinking it would face the same fate as the other discontinued Alpinists. This model also fell victim to sitting right at the cutoff point for the core Seiko product line and the Luxe product line, almost residing in a gray area for the brand. In any case, let's take a closer look at what it brings to the table and share some closing thoughts at the end. Now, as will be the case for much of the story of this piece, this watch delivers on many of the same notes as the 121. The 39.5mm case remains as a suitable sweet spot with a compact 46.4mm lug to lug and a 13.2mm case height that will be a bit tall, but it speaks to the category leading 200 meters of water resistance. For the case finishing, you have a mix of surface treatments. You have vertical brushing on the lug tops with the polish allowing for that wide bezel to shine. The crystal is sapphire with an anti-reflective coating on the underside and includes a Cyclops date magnifier over 3, which is a polarizing choice, especially considering that the SARB 017 didn't have a Cyclops. The unsigned time and date setting crown screws down, while the crown used for the internal compass bezel does not, positioned at 3 and 4 respectively. That compass bezel's utility may not be the most useful in day-to-day life, but it's a quirky feature that's become a hallmark of the Alpinist aesthetic. Moving around to the screwed-in case back, it's rendered in polished stainless steel with an exhibition window at center giving view of the movement within, but more on that later. Unlike its green sibling, the 117 comes standard on a stainless steel bracelet, and the 3-link configuration offers a traditional look featuring fully brushed anterior and posterior surfaces and polished sides, with the links secured by pins. The links are solid and feel secure, with solid end links connecting the watch to the central watch head. The clasp is going to be stamped with the Seiko word mark on top, being unlocked by twin push buttons. The clasp adds little to no bulk to the wearing presentation as a result of its shorter length. However, it only offers 2 points of micro adjustment, and it will require tools to make those changes. In total, the bracelet is absolutely serviceable, yet not at the standard of other aspects of the watch, which is a bar of exceptional. In my time wearing it, I have and will continue to wear it on the bracelet. It fits my needs, and I just like the flexibility of having this design with a bracelet configuration. It's another reason why I like the Baby Alpinist so much. Fortunately, 20mm lug width guarantees tons of strap options are going to be available for those that want to go a different route. Where the SPB 117 veers away from the SPB 121 in a big way is through a more subtle conservative look from the dial, one that some are going to prefer to the green and gold of its more well-known sibling. Gone is the green sunray and gold markings, and in their place a muted black backdrop for the more subdued silver elements, punctuated by little flashes of red. Starting at the outer edge of the dial, the rotating chapter ring controlled by the 4 o'clock crown shows the full 360 degrees of the compass, printed in white with red highlighting north, northeast, and northwest. Moving inboard to the dial, the minute track is also printed in white for good contrast, punctuated by dots of lume at every 5 minutes with small Arabic numerals below. The hour indices are mildly raised chrome triangles with larger ones sitting at 6 and 9 and twin triangles marking 12. An applied Seiko word mark rests below, and the text printed above 6 includes Prospex X, automatic, and water resistant rating of 20 bar printed in red. The Lume Cathedral handset remains from the rest of the Alpinist lineup, done in silver this time, amplified by the Cyclops magnification lens above. Legibility is solid, although it's not as strong as you might suspect for a black dial watch, as you aren't getting as much contrast with those silver chrome markers. I think this could have been an opportunity for adding more lume to the dial, since it's dropped some of the Arabics that come from the 121. That said, the lume is exceptional despite the limited surface area occupied with it. When the latest generation of Alpinists were released, one of its main upgrades came from its caliber within the Prospex range, the 6R35. Now, Seiko extends the power reserve with the 6R35 by 20 hours over the previous 6R15, now reaching nearly 3 days at 70 hours, bringing it into the territory occupied by more of the competition from Switzerland at this tier. The 6R35 runs at 3 Hz, allowing for that extended reserve, and features hacking, hand winding, has 24 joules, features Seiko's proprietary shock-resistant system, DiaShock, has an Edicron regulating organ, also has Seiko's in-house offset magic lever for winding efficiency, and also has magnetic resistant up to 4,800 amperes per meter. Move and finishing is certainly not what you're going to be expecting for this price tier, but especially for a watch of this type, it is on display, the full movement with minimal decoration of a more mass market variety. Accuracy is rated to +25 to -15 seconds per day, but anecdotally, these calibers offer better performance than Seiko will often quote. I find that Seiko often undersells these figures. And it's also important to mention that when you talk about vertically integrated manufacturers, Seiko is really at the top, no matter what price range we're talking about. So these are some of the most accessible in-house movements that you can come across in the entire industry, something you don't always find even at watches well above this price tier. Further, the 6R35 is found in watches north of $1,000 regularly, so this is really serving as the entry point for this caliber. So now let's unpack, talk a little bit more about this SPB 117. So this is a watch that I wanted to review because I have neglected this watch for quite some time. And I think so much of the attention goes to the SPB 121, but it's a weird mix when you look at this watch. Because on one side, you recognize that why so many people love watches and why people love the Alpinist 121 is because it represents character. It's different. On paper, if you wrote down all of the different attributes of that watch, it wouldn't make sense. But as a collective, it does actually work when you wear it on the wrist. This watch on paper makes a lot more sense, and it still is able to bridge the gap to some of the character elements that people love about the Alpinist. It just strips away parts of it that probably made it less viable for the everyday. So there's almost this thinking process around looking at this watch versus the 121 and thinking, this makes more logical sense, but that's ultimately not why we buy. And I talk about this a lot when I'm speaking about this collecting philosophy. But if you get down to it, this watch brings a lot to the table that might cause you, even if you are going beyond this idea and this conundrum of rationale versus emotion, it still can make a lot of sense. It's a black dial watch. It still is providing some of the quirks that so many people love about the Alpinist DNA. You have the 2-crown system, you have the compass bezel, cathedral handset, but this is basically a combination. What this really is, and now I'm recognizing it, is almost an answer to the Alpinist, the SARB series, but almost the SARB series entirely. If you looked at that SARB 033, that was that everyday style watch that so many people loved. And it was so versatile in the process. You could wear it pretty much anywhere. Then you had the 121, which was the answer to the SARB 017. And that was pretty much a one-to-one. There were some subtle changes. You had the movement upgrade, you had the Cyclops. This, though, is almost a combination of the former generation of the SARB 033 and the SPB 117 brought into a singular package. And if you combine those two watches as a singular force, it is absolutely a force under $1,000. This not only is going to be and is one of the most complete watches under $1,000, I think if we reframed and understood what this watch was, there might be more attention going the way of this piece, especially when you have the added bracelet as another point to consider compared to the SPB 121. That said, it really does come down to what might someone want to represent if they're going to spend around 700-ish bucks for a watch. Is it ultimate utility? If that's the case, this is probably the better choice. You have an added bracelet, it has this black dial, it's going to be more versatile. It also still has the 200 meters of water resistance, sapphire crystal, so many of the attributes that people are looking for. But is that enough to supplant the 121 with the character that's being brought forth with all of the oddball takes that that watch has really undertaken? I don't think it will, and I think it goes to show that this isn't always a consideration on paper that ultimately leads to what people decide to buy. But if you are in the market for a watch under $1,000, you like the Alpinist DNA, this is the watch that's been far, far too neglected in the watch collecting community. And I'm also partly to blame for that because I have not spoken about this watch nearly enough. But that is not something that will take place in the future. This is a phenomenal watch and one that absolutely needs to be on your radar as probably the most versatile Alpinist and maybe the most versatile Seiko watch currently in production under $1,000. All right, guys, well, that's my take looking at this Alpinist SPB 117. This is one that, again, I have neglected. I do not want to neglect it any longer. And I think many collectors don't even know that this one exists. Some do, obviously, but there's a larger segment that I think always thinks of the SPB 121, not this model. So what do you think about this piece? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you think it has enough that it brings to the table that outshines the 121? Or do you like the strange mix that comes with the traditional look of of the Alpinist family that was originally brought forth by the SARB 017. Obviously, the Alpinist name goes farther back than 2006, but I think you get my point here. That is just what enthusiasts think of mostly when talking about the Alpinist DNA. Love to hear some comments down below, especially if you own this piece. That'd be great to get some personal anecdotes from owners of this watch. I'd really love to see that, and I know other people would as well. If you enjoyed the video, please give this one a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Are there other Seiko watches that you think so many are neglecting that you'd like us to take a closer look at? That'd be also a nice thing to see in the comments as well. Also check out TeddyBallster.com. TeddyBallster.com is a full authorized dealer for all the brands that we carry. Quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support, and a full factory warranty for all the products that we offer. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.